Hi there. I was really looking forward to seeing what's coming out this year, and I'm really happy to talk about games that I think are really exciting releases for this year. More of a personal list than anything. These are games that are really exciting to me, and I have a lot of interest in both their genres and the development studios that are working on them. So I'm happy to get started on, in no particular order, my game that I'm looking forward to the most is actually toward the end. We'll see. We'll see what order I end up putting things in. But the first one I wanted to talk about is Hello Kitty Island Adventure. Now, I know, okay, so it seems like a bit more of a children's game. I think, obviously, it looks very much like an Animal Crossing type of game. Somehow it comes across way more for young kids than Animal Crossing. I'm sure that has to do with the characters. I somewhat know Sanrio characters. I really love Pom Pom Purin. I think he's adorable. I mean, what's cuter than a pudding puppy? You know what I mean? I'm like, oh my god, like, Jesus Christ, that's so cute. Yeah, I think the trailer is so interesting. Like, it's this mixture of Animal Crossing and more adventurous platforming games like Short Hike, which I enjoy both a lot. I think I get sick of them after a while, but you know what? Like, you buy them and ultimately the hours you put in, you're getting sick of it well within reason of what you're paying for, you know? So I consider them really great games. I might not put in thousands of hours that other people might on Animal Crossing. I think what we see here in Hello Kitty Island Adventure seems even more interesting. I love the idea of crossing Animal Crossing, right? And a Short Hike together. I think that lends itself to where someone like me would play for a very long time. I love games that give the open world aspects with a bit more direction and a story at the same time. And I like being able to choose depending on how I'm feeling that day, right? I will say this game has been on Apple platforms for a while, technically, like 2023. I think it did pretty well on there, but you know, things that release on Apple, you just don't even really hear about them. Apple people are in their own little world, I think. So it looks amazing. It looks so well suited for the Switch that I can only imagine it will do much better on the Switch. And I'm really looking forward to it. I think most Switch games, you don't have to wait very long. I'm sure it will go on sale within a year. Maybe when I'm kind of more settled and there's a down period, I would love to play this game. The developers, I believe this is like their only or main game. They're not like they don't have like a huge history as a development studio. Admittedly, I think I mostly put this on this list because I really, really do love Pom Pom Purin. Okay, next, Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma. Okay, so much to say about Rune Factory. A lot to say, not necessarily 2-hour rant level, so that's good for me, right? I was a big fan of Rune Factory 4. I blasted through that game. I actually rented it. Well, I borrowed it from my library back in the day. I played it on the 3DS back then. So, and I expect this game to be probably more on the action side than even Rune Factory 4 was. Back then, Rune Factory felt much like it wanted to do some of that farming in Harvest Moon and say, like, what if we put this kind of action-adventure RPG spin on that? I think it's going, based on the trailer, more toward that action-adventure, which, you know, I don't mind. I don't mind because the farming of Rune Factory 4 was just okay. I was actually, at the time, happy to do less farming anyway. I found it pretty intense with a lot of the other games like that, like Harvest Moon. The combat was so relaxing. It was really my first introduction in realizing that I enjoyed that style of combat, the little bit of action adventure RPG style. It was such a great progression system too. It felt so good. You were always getting these upgrades and the weapons were so fun and unique. I remember using this really cool like two-handed gem sword. It was this gigantic crystal that you were two-hand wielding. It was just a fun and very unique time, and the art style is captivating and unique. The town, the music, it's a little cheesy, but really not overbearing. It doesn't go too hard on one stereotype. You could say that it's a little anime, a little, you know, classic JRPG fantasy. It's a bit of both. The colors are super light and charming, but never overstimulating. So it's just really nice. And that's kind of the staple of kind of those life sims anyway, right? I think the disappointment happened is it's sad that a lot of those little things were missing in the 5th installment. I didn't go deep into the 5th game. Now, I think you can have good hopes for this one, for Guardians of Azuma, because it is developed by Marvelous again. I don't know that a lot of people realize that Rune Factory 5 was not developed by the same people. Rune Factory 4 was developed by the same company doing this, Marvelous Inc. So I have high hopes for them to get back on track with this, and I really think it is a unique twist on the cozy farm sim genre, you know. I think I will do more farming this time around, but I kind of like this style that they might be taking a little bit from some of the successes of Fire Emblem, maybe. It's a bit interesting. Not that it's a strategy game, but you can kind of see and feel a little bit of that character inspiration and story and those elements of it. I think this is gonna be a solid game. I think it's gonna be really fun. Again, I don't think I'll personally buy it unless there's a bit of a down period with some of my other major games, but I think it's gonna be a very cozy, great time for me on the Switch. I have to throw in that Marvelous Inc. in general understands this genre really well. They are responsible for Harvest Moon, Animal Parade, Tree of Tranquility. They did the OG Harvest Moon Friends of Mineral Town that I believe is like the Game Boy Advance, and those are like some top tier. Those are a lot of people's favorite Harvest Moon games, right? I don't think a lot of people realize Marvelous Inc. really excels in this genre, and they've done so for such a long time. I can't imagine them suddenly not knowing how to do that. It's been a bit of a gap, you know, given that they didn't do Rune Factory 5, but I think there's a lot of trust there that you can feel happy about this if you're a bigger fan of Rune Factory than I am. I don't think there's a need to worry too much here. I think it's going to be really great. I'm really looking forward to it. The MySims Cozy Bundle is huge nostalgia for me. I'm so excited to see if some of the younger generation enjoys this game, or even anyone around my age or older if they missed out on experiencing the MySims. I know it was more of a big thing if you had a Wii. So if you didn't experience that line of things, I have to tell you, these games are so fun. So fun. It feels to me like they were at the forefront of something at the time that they came out. I wish that more casual life sim style games were inspired by MySims, because I think it's incredible stuff. And I haven't felt that people take much inspiration from these games that were, you know, the 2000s era of things. The MySims games were developed by Visceral Games. That studio has a ton of history. I won't go into necessarily through this whole video because there's a lot there. A lot of people like to talk about what happened with Visceral Games. It's really interesting if you want to look it up, but they have history of just like so many incredible favorites for me of the life sim genre, and it's great to have this bundle of 2 games that really go deep in my heart, and I know that these games are still going to be fun that many years later. I remember playing MySims Kingdom over like 3 or 4 times. Like I finished the game 3 or 4 times. It is fun every single time because you have all this customization aspects to it that it's like you have these quests and you have this goal, but you can just do it your way, just slightly for the most part, you know what I mean? The basic element of it is, you know, when you're just doing the story mode, they'll kind of tell you, almost kind of like Animal Crossing Happy Home Designer, that there's this theme or this vibe that they want, right? Like, you need to be putting things down that are cute, and you have this array of stuff that you can build that you've kind of generally discovered from the world on how to craft these things, and you know where the ingredients come from to craft them. It's very exploration heavy, and you're unlocking these maps. Then you just kind of scroll through and you're like, well, what's cute and what theme do I want to go for and who am I making this for, right? That, I love that. Like, I've been doing that since I was a little girl. They had like Barbie games that did that of, God, I remember this Barbie game that you would paint. You would pick kind of what you want and you had to repaint the world. The world turned gray. And you were meant to use your magic wand and fix it, and you would just kind of paint on the screen how you wanted things, and you could kind of mix and match and throw things out there. It's just so much fun. I kind of mentioned already how much I love you have freedom, but you're still on a track, you know, you're still on the train tracks. It's just that you get your choice of which direction you want to go with it, right? I will say that it's pretty sad to not get MySims agents in this. I wonder why they did that. I think MySims agents maybe was not the most popular, and also it was not the customization that these 2 games are. I'm gonna guess that was what happened there. MySims agents definitely leans more into like you're doing a storyline and has significantly less customization than especially like MySims Kingdom. It kind of makes sense. The stories really are so fun and cute. I am thinking it over and realizing that I just love the story template of you need to bring fun and color back to a world or people's lives. I like the hopefulness of that. I definitely thought back in college that I would make a game like that as a little proof of concept or just practicing making games. Maybe I should still do that. I still could. So there's that. I'm learning a lot about myself talking about something so nostalgic for me. Yeah, Visceral Games made Sims 2, like Sims 2 Castaway, and I thought that was incredible. I wish that the Sims games never made anything better than Sims 2 in general. I'm gonna throw that out there. But Sims 2 Castaway, if you don't know, you know, you're in the Sims world and you create your character, but it's much less trying to live in your house kind of thing. You still have the management aspects of you need to eat and be clean, which can be kind of an interesting challenge when you're throwing a character out in a less controlled world. But yeah, MySims 2 Castaway was one of those storyline Sims kind of like DLC type of situation, and you had to go through a storyline in the confines of how Sims 2 works as a game and try to get yourself off this island and keep your sim alive still. And I loved those Sims 2 story heavy ones. It's incredible stuff. Oh my gosh. Professor Layton and the New World of Steam. I love this series. These games will never get old. Never get old. If you pick up any of these games, which you can, there's not necessarily a huge reason to start anywhere. However, they do have a general overarching story, and it's a really good story. It's very emotional and interesting. I think at this point they might have a couple different story arcs, so I would just Google a guide to that personally. I think I know the first game is not, yeah, it's not necessarily super integrated in the whole thing, but still like just so fun. The overall stories within one single game are always just the coolest kind of mysteries. So interesting. They're like these puzzles in themselves, right? I can play all the Professor Layton games over and over. They're just never going to be bad. They're incredible games. Incredible games. They're the best puzzle compilation of all time. So if you just like doing puzzles, you should just play Professor Layton games. They just compile all kinds of basically puzzle theories and having you practice them out. It feels like forever. Azuma Legacy came out in 2014 for North America, which is crazy to me. I know that they've done these little offshoots and I think like mobile versions of Professor Layton. It's just sad to me that you haven't gotten that big feeling game like Azuma Legacy since 2014. These games are so good. I'm just, if you don't know, Professor Layton is definitely more of if you've seen on my channel that I play The Witness, it's kind of like that you're just walking around the world and picking up puzzles. Way more diversified than something like The Witness. All kinds of different styles of puzzles. You know, mostly they made them for the DS, right? So you were mostly just kind of clicking around, and it's very exploration still. Even back when it was 2D, someone were trying to find puzzles. You had the story of puzzles, following the storyline to get to the end of the game. You don't necessarily have to do all of the puzzles to get there. So part of it was, if you wanted to be a completionist, you really had to explore and tap on things and really engage with the art of the game and the environment, which was really cool. And such a simple but well thought out idea of, you know, if you do extra puzzles, it kind of gives you coins so you could get more hints. And if you don't need to use the coins, you kind of get bonuses for that. Such great simple ideas. Oh my god, I love Professor Layton. God damn. Dynasty Warriors Origins. Okay, yes, this is more nostalgia. This is more nostalgia for me. Here's the thing though, okay. I'm not gonna try and throw out there that I'm some huge Dynasty Warriors nerd. I'm not technically. But I was obsessed with playing Dynasty Warriors on my PSP. I actually really enjoy hack and slash games. You know, I love the arguments about what makes a cozy game a cozy game. Because, you know, we all have these little things, right? And for me, a hack and slash game is a cozy game to me. You turn your brain off and you just slicing and dicing your way through these huge crowds of enemies. I'm not sure if it'll be fun for me entirely. I probably won't get it for a while. I'm gonna let it cook and really make sure on this one. But I do love hack and slash nature to games. The old Dynasty Warrior games had a much better feeling about it though. I didn't find the newer ones to be as fulfilling or enjoyable. I stopped trying many after a while, to be honest, so I won't go too deep into that. I could just tell from the trailer, it seemed like it was going back to those roots a bit and just having that great feeling gameplay. And sometimes that's all you want, like it just feels good to do what the point of the game is, no matter how simple that is. There's technically a story and all that. Not that I paid much attention back when I was like 7 or 8 on my PSP. So maybe it'll be interesting that I will actually pay attention this time around as an adult. I would love to give it another try. I would. The problem to me is there's something that felt really good on that mobile format, and it's not on a mobile console. I believe it's not coming on the Switch, which would be really fun actually. So I don't know about that. it might be a long time before I get to try this type of game again. The Perfect Dark reboot. Okay, so not actually nostalgia for this one, but it looks very cool. I did not play the original. I'm not that old. No offense if you are. It's a bit of a wait and see for me, but I think the trailer looks incredible. Is it crazy to me that this looks and reminds me of Stray? The cat game. It reminds me of the cat game. The world really looks nice. The way that you're exploring the world, you have this sense that they understand what they're doing with that, you know, similar to Stray. I think that's why I see it as, hey, this kind of reminds me of Stray. But I will say, and I try not to judge too hard on these things, right? But there's not a lot there historically from the studios that are developing it. The initiative doesn't really have history as a studio. I'm not sure entirely if they've mostly just been working on this game in conjunction with Crystal Dynamics. Because Crystal Dynamics is just okay. They just put out Tomb Raiders and Legacy of Kain. So mechanically, I could see where, you know, they're there with that and they have a lot of comfort in building out those worlds. I would say it might be technically good and well thought out, but will it be meaningfully entertaining and have heart to it? That's really hard to say, right? I would bet that the Tomb Raider games that they make are fun, but, you know, I think a lot of people that love that genre would rather play the Uncharted games. Do they do the same things? And probably on a technical level, they're nearly the same. Yes, I would bet my money on that, but obviously Uncharted put a lot more into it that was just meaningful with the voice acting and the story, all that stuff. And that stuff matters for these games. I think that's why people really went for Stray so well and attached to stuff like that. So maybe this helps them a lot too, that this is a reboot of, you know, an existing universe and game that they don't have to try as hard, and hopefully they just stick to that really well, you know. So, Tales of the Shire. At first looks pretty standard MySim with a Lord of the Rings skin on it, but I think there are some interesting parts to this game. It makes me a little nervous. I want it to be really good. I really do. Because I like the idea of it seeming to be more of a gathering, fishing, and cooking focused game. I've always wanted that. I love cooking in literally every game. And the things that I prefer the most in games like Harvest Moon and Stardew Valley are the gathering and fishing and just more adventurous exploration. Yeah, it's a lot more in line with my style, that's why I would say it's something I'm personally interested in. I think if you're similar to me, where you don't care as much about sitting there and plotting out your farm and stuff like that, this game seems to shift more toward walking out and about a lot and having time for that on a day-to-day within the game. So I think it's something that I could enjoy a lot, depending on if there's a real story to it. I couldn't tell from all kinds of demos that people are playing if there really is a lot of substance to it. I'm not sure if I would enjoy walking around every day with no meaningful goals, so I'm on the lookout for it. I want to see, even if it doesn't have story, I want to see if there's this reward for just unlocking a ton of recipes, and I think that aspect of it looks really kind of unique and fun. It's a really nice twist to focus on. Graphically, I think they could have gone a little more stylized and cuter. The demos of the games that I saw for Tales of the Shire, it just looked a little... It didn't look clean. I think it could have cleaned up and just tried something simpler. We'll see how it looks when it actually comes out. Maybe they're older versions than I realized. You never know with when they release demos or snippets that they would like YouTubers to play. So never judge on that. You know, compared to Hello Kitty and Rune Factory, I really want this one to be good. Like, I want this one to be the one that I get, because it's something that I'm really craving right now. You know, just the gathering and cooking and fishing. I will say I think part of it is the studio. This is their first game. They haven't produced a game before. They are a long-standing company. They were involved with production of the Lord of the Rings, the movies, and I believe the TV shows too. I'm not this huge Lord of the Rings nerd, but it really seems like they understand the vibe of it really well, and it's not just a grab for an IP name. Just unclear if there's a long-term fun to the game is my issue. But I really appreciate their enjoyment of just seeming to love the universe of Lord of the Rings rather than a specific story, you know, that's part of the movies. It's just living in that world, right? South of Midnight is an interesting one. It's one of the most unique games that would be on my list. I know that I have a lot on my list for this year that's just based on already fleshed out stuff. South of Midnight is truly its own thing. Oh man, I mean, I had to say, the Spider-Verse movies really kickstarted some kind of popularity with this art style, right? I didn't know how to feel about that. I don't mind it for the cutscenes, but wow, I found it jarring to see when the trailer switches to the character running around that it still has that kind of jitteriness to it. I don't know that I really like that, especially because it is that action-adventure style that is so formulaic at this point, honestly. And what you kind of want when it's this action-adventure fighting, like games with like The Witcher and Elden Ring, you want that smoothness to it. I think a lot of people look for that now. The visual is incredibly important when you are just remaining in the same old combat style that's been thought out over and over again, and it's not that much variation or change to it. Having this visual style can make it a challenge. I think it can be distracting even if it is very smooth technically. You know, honestly, the more that I look at it, the more I kind of talk myself down from this game, which I feel bad. I think it could be interesting. I do like the style. I like seeing in the trailer her on that big old catfish or whatever it is. The music and the atmosphere, there's an immersion to it that I hope it is just kind of a chill game. I would love to get it maybe later on at a discount just to experience hopefully a fun, interesting story that's something very different from most games, because I actually love that it's like the Princess and the Frog thing. It's like Louisiana style, you know? I like the music and stuff like that, and the accents especially. But yeah, the comment just seems like whatever. At this point, it's such a copy-paste, you know, switch up the homework a little bit, just the standard of this genre. You just feel that with each of these games releasing, and, you know, like, I mean, I've been playing Jedi Survivor, and that's really just more of the same, and they put this skin to it. It's a bit of a flair, but it's not really what we talk about when you talk about adding a twist to a genre. You know, Tales of the Shire would be that example of putting a bit of a twist to a genre. Hello Kitty Island Adventure, as funny as it is to compare to Jedi Survivor, is taking a very simple concept that is, you know, appreciating the style and standards of a game genre and leveling it up. Taking another step. You don't want to go too hard on changing something up, but you just want to find that little twist to it when you're developing games. Especially when you're trying to do more than just make money, right? I think the dodge rolling pace is getting old for this genre. That's me. I think it's going to have to transition soon. And when I say soon, the game development cycle is like 3 to 5 years. So, not literally soon, maybe, but for game development years, I think it's coming up. I think they're gonna have to start changing something because they're just making more and more, right? Like you have like Black Wukong, and people say it's like still, that's like game of the year, and it still has its place in the market for sure. It's what the market is still willing to buy, but the excitement is dying out and they have to do something a little different, in my opinion, with this combat style. I have to say too, the studio does not have the best history so far. It's still a young studio. I think they're growing into it. I think they are. They made We Happy Few, which was a great idea executed pretty poorly. There was clear production issues with that game. It was an interesting case of a lot of things, but once again, a studio struggling with trying to integrate procedural generation in a fairly story-heavy game. I'm glad that generally the industry has let go of procedural generation, especially for that style of game. It just doesn't make sense. Like it does. Oh, I can't believe so many studios got talked into that. I think it has a lot to do with the big publishing studio possibly pushing a lot of games to do that in the games produced through the 2010s, especially in the later half of the 2010s. Huge issue with happened, similarly, Mass Effect Andromeda. I think this game is clearly not doing stuff like that, and it seems more focused and clear in its identity. You can see that in the trailer. I think that it's not, they didn't cut it up to hide all those issues. It's clear that it's there. So I think this is a good game for the studio to ground itself in. I hope they stay focused on that and learn something. I think they have. Pokemon Legends. I don't know how people are saying this, if it's ZA or Z2A, Z-A. I'm curious what the Zoomers say. Not much known about this game. Supposedly sometime in 2025. I suppose it's early. Maybe we'll see this in the later half. I'm gonna guess because the Switch 2 is happening that this is a bit of a launch game with it, possibly. I'm glad that they're making more. Arceus was slow, but I appreciate it a lot for its innovations to this. The gameplay really shocks you into this joy and wonder. It was exciting to me, even if I didn't personally go super far in the game. It wasn't necessarily exactly what I want out of my Pokemon experience, because I really like the battle and strategy aspects of Pokemon a lot. The Pokemon Legends feels more toward having this in-between where you're kind of playing Legend of Zelda almost. There's some kind of taste and feeling of that, right? I think it does an incredible job for what it's trying to do. The boss fights are incredible and were so unexpected to me. I had no spoilers going into Arceus, and it's really incredible to experience if you know nothing about the games. If you haven't seen it, I think it's an interesting experience for sure. I think it's such a great game. Such a great game. I'm excited to see what they do more with it. I think this iteration is going to be even better. That I might love it even more. We'll see. The Outer Worlds 2. I did play through the first game. I found it to be a good time. I know that there were a lot of criticisms, but you know what? I think I just find every Obsidian Entertainment game to be a good time, even when it's pretty mediocre. And the first game was mediocre. It got very confused. I felt a bit sad that Obsidian seems to be a little self-indulgent about who they are and their identity. It's not a bad world that they've created. It's cool to me that they're trying to still roll with it. But they're really heavy-handed with their quirkiness at times. It's more fun when it's not overly indulging in that, like I was saying. The first game wanted so bad to be witty and just like trying too hard to be intelligent about it. It's not annoying, it's just kind of like there were so many times where it was out of place and it distracts from the world. I think they really didn't build the world out enough because of these witty one-liners that they wanted to integrate, and they made the mistake of thinking those little things and those little lines were going to build a world for them, and it didn't. So there wasn't really this sense of identity. And it's unfortunate because when you get toward the end of the game in the Outer Worlds, clearly they ran out of time. I mean, that seems clear enough to me. I've had enough experience with RPGs to just know that when I see it, because, I mean, God, not enough people talk about what happens in the last quarter of Knights of the Old Republic, but like, you see it quite a bit historically with RPGs in general. And, you know, the story got confused and not fleshed out and explained enough. It's kind of just a dead fish plopping on water there, you know? And you're like, well, I generally had a good time, and they know how to do these mechanics so well that you do just have a good time playing the game. But it needed more time, and having a second game maybe means that this is the game with more time, and hopefully that is the case. I will play it. I know that I will play it eventually. I think that I will just wait for a sale though. I don't think there's any amount of me watching someone else play it without having a spoiler of the ending where I would know if it's any different from the first game, and I don't want to have the spoiler of what happens in the game. So I'm just gonna get it when it's on sale. I am excited for it. I don't trust Obsidian enough to know that they won't still mess it up though. We can only just hope that they learn their lesson once again. I don't know what the deal is right now. I don't know if it's 2025. I didn't realize until looking into it, as I always do at the start of the year, that there would be so many reboots, but we're talking about another reboot. I am very excited for this. I'm really excited for this. I'm so excited. I have this tendency for the things I'm most excited about almost to withhold how much I could talk about these things. I didn't even necessarily like super care about Rune Factory, but I talked about Rune Factory so much in some of the history. And Fable, I have so much more hope for it and desire, and I just wrote some of the least amount of words for this. I don't know why I do that. But the trailer, oh my god, like, just go see the trailer. I think it looks so cool and amazing. I'm so glad the direction they went with the art style, where it's not as goofy. It's still a little cartoonish. There's still that inspiration there from the original game, but the original game was definitely these weird, quirky proportions, and I'm really glad to see this direction that they went in instead. It still feels Fable, but it feels matured. It feels like it's growing up. The developers, these are the developers of Forza Horizon, so as far as I'm concerned, everything they make is gold. I buy literally all of their games. I mostly want to talk about just how incredible they are at understanding open world content. I think Playground Games is, if not the best, it's really like just top tier studio for knowing what works in an open world. Full freedom open world. They understand so much of it so well. There's so many layers to that. A lot of people don't consider all the things that they do, but you have to think about every step that the player takes, right? When you're going into open world content, you have just the UI. When you open up the map, how quickly can the player understand what they're looking for and what they want to do and how they can find that? The Forza Horizon games are incredible at those layers, you know? You find what you want to do on the map so easily. There's all these different ways and small customizations of getting there, and there's these little things along the way that you don't have to keep opening your map for, which is a huge problem in kind of the action-adventure RPG genre. You play some of those games like Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and you're just flicking open your map over and over and over, because how else do you really know how to get somewhere? That's where I think Playground Games understands that. You know, I talked a lot about the UI, but once you close that map, the design of the world and feeling it out and feeling like you're living there and you understand how to get around, and the visual processing for the player of recognizing where they are and all these things, and the consistency of, like I said, you maybe said as the player, you want to go to this thing, and then you get a little sidetracked doing some other things, right? Happens all the time in Forza Horizon. The reason that they can do that, which is so smart, is because they understand the consistency of visuals for the player. You're driving along, right, and you can see inside of your vision something you recognize, some kind of plaque, some kind of color that they always use for this type of challenge, and you think, I recognize that. I don't even have to think twice, right? If you've played Forza Horizon, you know that there's like speed traps, and for a speed trap, it's got the like, you know, when you like run through a red light, it's like a camera capture, and you just instantly know like, I gotta go fast here. And outside of the map, the screen tells you that, right? You hear the sound, you see the camera, there's a little thing telling you how fast you need to be going to be successful in this little mini game. It's not, there's no loading screen, it's all integrated into the world, and you're doing that speed trap all along the way to the mission you genuinely want to go to. And that smoothness is just an incredible feeling. I wish that studios understood looking out for these different genres, and studios that are being so successful at something that works in another genre as well. These RPG games are doing all these open world content, map designs, and yet not looking outside of the bounds of other RPGs. Like, they should be looking at other style of games to see what they also do with this component. I think that this is going to be incredible, because I know that Playground Games understands this so well. I know that wasn't a lot about Fable. I could talk about a lot of nostalgia for Fable. I think Fable is one of the most interesting spins on RPG. It's so odd to me that it didn't go very far. Not a lot of studios took that and ran with it, even though that Fable is a very famous point of history for video games. It all kind of backslid a little bit, I think, because there's this confusion of, you know, people talk about things like The Witcher and Elden Ring being RPGs, and you can see here, I say Fable is action-adventure RPG, however, it's really not quite like playing The Witcher or Elden Ring, so there's a lot of genre confusion to that, popularity levels and what publishing studios, how much they want to make and the money they want to make. I think because it's all lumped in and the market doesn't quite understand. People that buy games, it can be hard to market to them if you just say, yeah, this is an action-adventure RPG. I think they don't have that figured out. So I'm glad that this eventually came back around. I'm just so excited to see if there's more substance to this, because I think this can be like a real kickstart to a new wave of games. Okay, last here, I'm going to talk about split fiction somewhat fast, I think. At this point, I did finish It Takes Two. It's almost weird for me to put this on the list because I, in a way, really despised It Takes Two. I don't know if I've ever been more mad at a game as I was trying to finish it. And I also had never skipped cutscenes before. I have never skipped dialogue with such vitriol before It Takes Two. I was really sick of it and wanted to stop. But the thing that draws me back a little bit is, first of all, Split Fiction has dragons. I love dragons. Dragons are the coolest. I might be easy to advertise to in a sense. The other aspect is It Takes Two has mechanically really great design for a puzzle platformer. I really do like the puzzles. I just think that it wasn't very consistent in It Takes Two. The second half of the game is almost a very, very different game. It felt like one person designed the first half and a different person designed the second. But you want to hope and think that them making another game of the same style, they've learned a lot and it will be more straightforward for them and there would be less confusion. I think that's possible. I think it could be a really good game. I think I'll buy it eventually on a deep discount if it ever does go on a deep discount. I would like to ask them and beg them to please create less dialogue for the characters. Please be less obnoxious. Please be less obnoxious about the dialogue and how often the characters talk. I think for a puzzle platform, it's on to me just the amount they want to disrupt you with. You need a bit more quiet, and the fact that you're not having the player consent to hints and stuff in It Takes Two is a huge problem to me for this type of genre. I think that it was forgiven a lot because a lot of people took on to It Takes Two when they're not familiar with the genre, and I praise it a lot for that. I think they truly were so good at making the mechanics and the level design that a lot of people that don't play those types of puzzle games wanted to play that game and really enjoyed it. That's really cool to me. I think for that reason they forgave these kind of sins to the genre. However, I think there's probably a decent amount of people like me that's like, why would you have this character throw out a hint, you know, when we've only been here for like 20 seconds and just constant talking while you want to talk with your partner on how to solve and how you want to do it. I hope that they reduce that kind of noise and just clean things up, and these could be really great, more mechanics focused games, which would be really cool. Well, that's my list of exciting games that are releasing this year. I definitely don't want this to come across as a list of games I'm going to be buying. I pretty much never buy or pre-order a game when on the dates that it's coming out. Very rare. Maybe someday I'll talk about my thought process on when I would pre-order something or, you know, buy it without a discount. I think some people could use that kind of advice because there's really not many games that you guys should be doing that for. I gotta say, I'll give you some financial advice someday. These are games that I'm gonna watch for a while. This is kind of how I do things, that I like to list it out, and my wish list on Steam is huge, okay? Everyone that friends me on Steam notes my wish list. There's like 80 games on there. And I do eventually buy these games. I really do. I love games so much. I want to try all these different genres and see what's bringing new things, new spins to things. I want to see how things develop and how studios mature, how genres mature. It's really interesting. And I think that there's some great games this year, but it at the same time feels like not that exciting of a year, in my opinion, at least from the stance of how I like to play games and what games I like to play most. It's just kind of that time period, I suppose, for the game industry. You always have these off years considering how long it takes to make games. You'd hope that there were more kind of smaller games that don't take as long, but that doesn't seem to be the case too much this year. We'll kind of see more things sometimes just randomly pop up, especially on Steam. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed me talking through how I kind of have a thought process every year of looking at games that are releasing through the year and my thoughts through it. I think it's important to consider studios and their propensity for certain things, successes they've had, and it's fun to have that relationship a bit with studios. So let me know what games you guys are looking forward to. I'd be really interested to hear that, and I will only be listening if you explain why. You have to tell me why if you're gonna tell me that you're excited for a game. I want to know more, okay? But I'd love to learn new things, so hopefully I get to see some. I'm excited to do more styles like this. Let me know if you enjoy it, and make sure that you are, liking and subscribing so I know that you are enjoying it. Until next time, bye!